Here he is, TSN Hockey Insider, one half of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, Mr. Darren Dreger, back with Sekeres and Price. I got Jeff here for
Hey, Dregs.
I do. Good to see you guys. I've got my Titleist hat on. We've got about 3 feet of snow here in southern Ontario, so I don't have the luxury of getting to a golf course anytime soon. But I thought, you know what? Normally I come on your show and I've got the Ray and Dregs hat on, but I'm feeling golf-like today.
Oh, wow. So. We've got about 3 feet of rain, Drex. I think it's going to be a while before our golf courses want to see anybody traipsing about. Yeah. Okay. Needless to say, the biggest trade in some time in the National Hockey League. Darren, were you surprised at the timing on Friday night?
Yeah, not surprised at the timing per se. But look, like so many others, my side of the business, and you guys who follow it very, very closely, it was impossible to say that a Quinn Hughes trade in season wasn't going to happen. Maybe it wasn't even likely, just based on everything that we knew, and the fact that a player as special as Quinn Hughes, of course, you're going to gather an audience. And the speculation around New Jersey and Detroit was there on a day-by-day basis. But it still felt like it was unlikely given how, we see the pieces that the Minnesota Wild had to invest to acquire Quinn Hughes. Well, that's the very reason why Quinn Hughes didn't go to the Eastern Conference. It's because Detroit and New Jersey couldn't make that type of deal work in season. And honestly, guys, I did not see a team like Minnesota stepping up the way that they did at this point of the year. But then you got to balance that with what we know, the history, the track record of Jim Rutherford, and the big name players that this man has traded over his time in NHL management. And that list is impressive. And we also know historically that Jimmy likes to get his work done early. So maybe we shouldn't have been as surprised as we were. But the whole shock and awe of it wasn't just that Quinn Hughes was traded on Friday. It was that he was traded to Minnesota, a team that really nobody had on their radar as being a likely candidate.
So if we look at it from the Minnesota side, Dregs, and you're right, I think they felt like a little bit of an outsider because there were so many other names linked here. Quinn makes his debut, he scores. I think they've lost 3 times in regulation in their last 21 hockey games. Yeah. They make the deal now. Is there enough runway, do you think, for them with a Quinn Hughes turbo boost to reel in Dallas? Like, it's Colorado, it's Dallas, it's Minnesota in that Central Division. One of those teams isn't even getting out of the first round. So by Mini making the trade now, do you think it gives them enough runway to maybe reel in Dallas and get home ice advantage in the first round of the playoffs?
J-Pat, it gives them enough runway. Whether they do that or not, that's up to the Minnesota Wild. That's a tall ask when you look at how well the Dallas Stars have played to this point of the regular season. Colorado is an absolute juggernaut. So the reason that I like this trade is because, look, I just gave credit to Jim Rutherford for doing what he always does. He dives into that trade pool early. That's not new for Jimmy. But how about a little love going to Billy Guerin and by extension the owner, Craig Leopold? Guerin's got some serious stones based on what you just said. Like, yes, of course, he's bringing in an all-time player in Quinn Hughes, but he gave up some incredible assets, incredible talent that is now property of the Vancouver Canucks. In a year where you're looking at how well the Dallas Stars are playing, formidable, right? Is there weakness in that Stars lineup? Well, maybe, Tyler Seguin is hurt, but beyond that, there isn't. Their goaltending is there. Their defense is exceptional. And, they've got some pretty good talent up front. And you could say the same thing of what's going on in Colorado. So imagine how that conversation goes between Billy Guerin and Craig Leopold. And this was a week ago. And I don't know how much reporting has been done in your market here, fellas, but so here's what went down. Right? Everybody knew that Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford were talking to the teams in the East. We all knew that. Billy Guerin picks up the phone, calls his old buddy, Jimmy, now 8-9 days ago, on Friday, was roughly a week ago, and said, hey, I keep reading and hearing that Quinn wants to go to the East. But if there's a chance that a team like Minnesota can get in, then we'd like to get in. Yeah, there's a chance. Why wouldn't there be a chance? Make your best offer. And they crept along that line until, as he said on Friday, he's rolling meatballs in his kitchen and the phone rings and there's Rutherford saying, yeah, we have a deal. Well, like if I'm a team or a fan base in any other market, I got some questions. I've got some questions for my team's general manager and ownership and everyone else. You say you're a contending team. You want to be a competitive contending team. You've got, just enormous holes in your roster, but you don't have the intestinal fortitude to go out and do what the Minnesota Wild did. So, man, I don't know that they've got enough talent in that group to tangle with the likes of the Colorado Avalanche, but they're a hell of a lot better today and that's saying a lot because they gave up real nice pieces out of Minnesota. But for my money, they're better.
Well, from a Vancouver perspective, Dregs, let's hope Rossi, Buim, and Ogren are more sirloin than they are meatballs coming over from Minnesota. And look, if this does ignite an arms race in the Central, game on. I'd be an interested spectator if everything is going down in the Central between now and the deadline. You mentioned Jersey and Detroit, Darren.
Yeah.
Who else was in this at the end?
Weirdly, the New York Rangers, because my brain won't allow me to go there. With all due respect to Quinn Hughes and Adam Fox, can you really have the same guys? I don't think so, but we're told the Rangers were in there. Buffalo had strong conversations. Again, nobody is willing to fully disclose what the pieces were that Vancouver was after off of each of these teams. I know that Rutherford specifically has had a soft spot for Bo Byram for a long time. So I would wonder, I'm not reporting, I would wonder if Byram would have had to have been part of that package. But I talked to Tom Fitzgerald from the Devils this morning. And, of course there was considerable interest. Absolutely there was. It wasn't a money issue. They could have eventually LTI'd somebody, right? They just, it was the components and less from New Jersey's perspective, but from Vancouver's standpoint. Keep in mind, guys, this happens all the time. Not normally in December, normally around the trade deadline, where you've got an offer that you can really live with. And so Vancouver took that Minnesota offer, probably didn't disclose it was Minnesota, but said, we've got 4 primary elements, including a first-round draft pick, and then we've got some real nice NHL roster pieces. Give me your best shot. And, the Devils just went, okay. Without knowing specifics, couldn't do that. I don't think Detroit has the depth in their existing roster to do that without doing serious damage. And, the New York Rangers as well. So those 4 teams, I think, primarily were the focus teams in the East.
It certainly sounds like Minnesota had the best overall package. From your understanding, though, was Zeev Buim the best individual piece or prospect that was offered up? Do you know of other names?
No, not really. But, I mean, J-Pat, you watch a ton of hockey, right? I mean, this kid is special. He is. So, who are we talking about off the roster given, his age, talent set, all of those things? And it's impossible to say because nobody is going to officially disclose that. For sure, there's going to be, parts that are leaked through speculation that we're going to learn of. But I can look at any of the 4 teams that we've mentioned at their rosters, at what they've got developing, and pick a player that I think might get into that category of where Zeev is. But you're talking right up there in the penthouse. Like, Minnesota did not want to give up on they didn't. They didn't want to give up on this kid, but they realized or recognized that, look, if we are going to go to war with Dallas and or Colorado, and we're going to try and win a Stanley Cup in the next couple of years, Quinn Hughes gives us a better option than Buim does. But I think in time, Zeev Buim has the potential to be as good as Quinn Hughes. I mean, that's how talented this kid is.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big statement, Darren. Why was, because we had heard his name back in the summer, and we had discussed some of the reasons, but I'd like to hear it from you, best you understand it. Why was Minnesota so anxious to deal Marco Rossi?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, because now it's unrelated to his contract negotiations. I don't think that there was any sort of animosity that lingered beyond that. Does he fit the eye of Bill Guerin or Hines? I guess not. But doesn't it go back to the old understanding again that Rutherford has always embraced? Bill Guerin talks about, and I'm sure he did, I didn't see his full media availability, but Billy Guerin has said this publicly a number of times because he learned it from Jimmy. When you make a trade, certainly a blockbuster like this, everybody's got to walk away from the deal happy. And if you embrace that as your end goal, okay, the Vancouver Canucks get the package they needed to get to deal their captain. Quinn Hughes obviously is okay with being in Minnesota, keeps saying that he is. He's playing like he is. Again, the sample size is small. But then you're the Minnesota Wild and you get the player that you've coveted for a while. Secretly, you've got to give up high quality to get that player. And so I don't know that they were shopping, trying to move Marco Rossi beyond the negotiation through the contract. But I think that the recognition is there. Vancouver had very specific needs to keep that team competitive. And, that's the sidebar for all of this to me. Yeah, there's a chance that there's more teardown happening in Vancouver between now and March 6th, right? There's a chance. You get into the second half, you revisit the idea of moving Kiefer Sherwood or those pending unrestricted free agents. But isn't there a chance that this team stays competitive?
Well, gets competitive. I think gets competitive. They're last place in the NHL. So we've been having some fun with stay competitive. I hear what you mean, Darren. Blake's. It was the first words out of Blake's mouth on Friday when we did the emergency show. Is that you can make a case that with 3 roster pieces added now, including filling a huge hole at second line center, that they could be better and improve between now and March and the end of the season.
Beyond the trade itself, did we have a watershed moment, though, late on Friday when the Canucks issued the press release and used the word rebuild, Darren? They had been fighting the use of the word rebuild, but it was attributed to Jim Rutherford. So what do we make of them finally relenting and giving the people, a lot of the people here, ultimately what they want?
Well, when it comes to the R words, rebuild is the worst, right? You can say retool, you can say renovate, all of those things. Rebuild, I mean, it sounds like it's a take it right down to the wood type of situation. I don't think it's that. I don't think it's that. But I can tell you that Canucks management, and I assume ownership, were very excited and happy when they made the deal on Friday. And I think it's pretty obvious, and I think Jimmy acknowledged this as well. They've known for a long time that Quinn Hughes wasn't going to extend. Well, if you know that, then the rest is just smoke and mirrors, right? It just is. And I feel badly because, and look, it's not, hey, we can ask the questions. Doesn't always mean we get the truth or we deserve the answers. But the messaging all along was from the start of the year, well, Vancouver needs to be competitive to buy time, to prove to their captain, to prove to Quinn that they're a team that he should want to extend with. Well, okay, but it doesn't sound like that message was delivered by either Quinn or Paterson, and Vancouver has known that for a long, long time. So now go back to why is Jimmy Rutherford, Patrick Galvin, and everyone so excited? Well, they stay competitive this year, great, or get competitive or more competitive. I mean, chances are non-playoff team. You're going to move out some other pieces. They're going to put themselves in a spot where if it's a retool or renovations, it could happen very quickly. But I know that Rutherford specifically is excited because I think he feels like if or when he leaves the Vancouver Canucks, he's going to leave the Canucks as an organization in a better position for longer term. And we'll see if that's the way it turns out. I mean, it could. The 3 young pieces that are in the lineup now, they're good pieces. You've got a first-round draft pick in a deep draft in 2026. And again, maybe Vancouver doesn't stay as competitive. and they collect 2 or 3 more higher valued draft picks. So there's lots of promise there, but it's long term.
Darren, speaking of the future, I think a lot of eyebrows were raised here on Friday when Rutherford and Alvin did separate media conferences on this. Jim said Patrick had a lot on his plate, so he ran the Quinn Hughes trade, and we're sitting there going, what could be more important than the Quinn Hughes trade? And then Alvin gets asked point blank, do you have a culture problem? And boy, that was a tough answer for him. Do you see any fissures or fractures here between the Canucks management team? Is it possible that Patrick Alvin is going to have to wear this season here going forward?
I don't think so. I haven't heard that. But, everything that we heard in following up on Friday and doing our due diligence was that, Jim Rutherford ran that trade from beginning to end. And he would do that in concert with Alvin. But, even Guerin acknowledged, while he's making the meatballs, it was Jimmy that called him to say that, we have a done deal. Now, that would speak to the relationship that those two men have, but Patrick Alvin has a good relationship with Billy Guerin. So I don't know. I don't get the sense that there's any sort of fractured relationship, but it's abundantly clear that Jim Rutherford was the driving force in what is a very significant trade, blockbuster trade by NHL standards, and a very significant trade to the future of the Vancouver Canucks.
Yep. Last one from me, Dregs. When you talk to your people around the league, how do they feel Vancouver did here on the return?
Really well. Yeah, really well. For all the reasons that we've talked about here. Marco Rossi, I don't think he's underrated. But he's going to be a good fit. And frankly, he's a godsend to the Vancouver Canucks. Liam Ogrim, I don't know much about him, but the feedback is that he's faster than what maybe most people thought. Young guy. He's got a lot to learn yet. Zeev, we've already talked about him, the special talent that he provides. But I think that there are going to be some triggers in some areas that we're going to watch unfold here. Like I watched a bit of that power play, the new look power play now, obviously the Vancouver Canucks. Small sample size. I'm not sure it's not going to be better. And that I'm not pointing my finger at Quinn and saying he was holding back the power play, the Vancouver Canucks. That's crazy. But it's a different sort of structure now with different assets and skill sets that Adam Foote can throw at the group. So I think it's a win-win. I really do. And I think just pure hockey analysis, I haven't found anybody yet that says, the Canucks the Canucks could have done better, or Minnesota overpaid, or any of that. I think mostly people look at it as fair value.
Yep. No, I hear the Buim kid's going to run a hell of a power play, and you got another guy there, especially in Paterson's absence, and Rossi.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we thought we would be every week on this topic till March at least, Darren.
The dust may still be falling in March.
I mean, there is more to come. That much we know, and we will continue to discuss with Mr. Dreger of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, TSN Hockey Insider. Thank you, sir. Happy holidays.
Thanks, guys. Yes, same to you.